Hi, everybody. This is kind of an unscheduled live, which to you and also share some other things with you. Let me see if I can get the chat up. And you know that if you're probably already tuning in, the hopefully there'll be some people joining us here soon. I wanted to share some things regarding, excuse me, setting good boundaries today. And I just thought I would share some thoughts that would be helpful to you. Hi, Beth from Michigan. Being a Hoosier boy, I understand where Michigan's at. When we talk about boundaries, particularly setting good boundaries for adult children of dysfunctional families, that's where it becomes more difficult. If you've grown up in a healthy family or a healthier family, I think every family has some dysfunction in it for sure, because anytime you have more than one person, you probably got some dysfunction going on. And thank you from Turkey. I appreciate your following very much. In setting boundaries from an adult child of dysfunctional family's perspective, the boundaries are going to feel differently than if you say grew up in a healthy family. It's going to feel very different. And I just thought it would be helpful to talk about that just a little bit so that we can be prepared when we set boundaries. We can set good boundaries. And we understand what's happening when we're doing that. And that has helped me to set boundaries better because I did not have any boundaries. I was pretty much codependent, uber codependent guy for many years. And so I understand the difficulties in feeling guilt and shame and anxiety and timidness about my own self, not knowing my own self. Did I see someone from Australia? Wow, in New Mexico. And thank you for joining very much. You're going to be seeing me more this week, so I hope you'll kind of watch. I don't know if this is a perfect time for everyone, but it seemed to work out pretty well for a lot of people. The setting boundaries is a skill. It is a skill that we can learn to do, and it is a skill that does not. We would kind of see setting boundaries as someone who does that down on stage, but I'm up in the audience. In other words, I can't do what they do. I can just be up here watching people do it, but I really can't do it. And either I'm too afraid, I'm too worried about the consequences. I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. I don't want someone to think I don't love them. All of those things that cross our mind and our emotions when we're trying to set boundaries. And I wanted to kind of reorient boundaries a little bit today in talking with you and what they're for and how we should think about them. Because I think a lot of people will think about them as a way to change the other person. I need to set a boundary so that they will change. The difficulty with that perspective is certainly I would like them to change. Certainly I'd like to ask them to change. And you have every right to ask someone, please don't do that. You have every right to do that. But many times if somebody's already breaching or breaking your boundaries, then they already have a boundary breaking problem anyway. So it's not like, maybe there's some neurotic, healthy people out there that you can just tell them, hey, and they're sensitive enough and empathetic enough and go, oh, I'm so sorry, I didn't know that was a problem for you. But other people who have boundary issues and boundary problems, it's difficult to get them to understand They just don't understand that, and don't maybe even want to do what you're asking, and that they just figure you should put up with it. That's what you should be doing, is just put up with what's going on. And so when I think about boundaries and working on those for many years, because I think it does take some practice, and I do want to say, as always, calmness is everything. Please watch that video. If you haven't, that's a classic on the YouTube channel, because I talk about why calmness is so important, and calmness is so important for boundary setting. Now, if you say, well, Jerry, I just feel way too much anxiety. I understand, but there's a way to learn to do that to help reduce that anxiety, so that it can come out of your adult and not out of your inner child who's afraid. And that's often where we try to set boundaries rather than from our adult, because I need to quiet my inner child while I'm setting boundaries with someone. Another way of thinking about it, I need to quiet my emotions and keep focus on my thoughts. Not feelings, but thoughts. As the anxiety goes up, as tension goes up, as upsetness goes up, we want to do the opposite of what the system wants us to do. The system wants us to focus on our feelings, absorbing theirs, being reactive in ours, when actually what we want to do is focus on our thoughts and say, this is not the time for feelings. If I need to set a boundary, it's not the time for me to be talking about my feelings, their feelings. This is simply an adult discussion. I would like to ask you to stop doing that. For example, and again, that's a simple boundary, but they're more complex than that, as we all know. But I want to focus on my message, not the absorbing of the feelings in the interaction between them and me. That's not going to help with a boundary. So, one of the things is, and I'm going to mention this point, and it is difficulty setting boundaries often stems from unresolved attachments. Many people come to me and say, I can't set boundaries. I need to set boundaries. I don't know how to set boundaries. I don't know what my boundaries should be. And again, we can get help for all of those questions. We can get guidance and coaching and help for those things. You can learn more about how to do those things. I've got a number of videos on different topics about self-differentiation and boundaries. And one of the things I think we don't want to forget, though, and people often do, that difficulty setting boundaries often has to do with unresolved attachments. Now, what do I mean by that? In other words, we're still attached to old relationships in which boundaries could not be set. And so we have difficulty with the supervisor, the co-worker, the church member that we go to church with, the friend, the yoga partner, that whatever. We have difficulty setting boundaries with them because what we have learned and how we're still attached regarding our family of origin, and particularly the dysfunctional family of origin. Because what did we learn about boundaries growing up in a dysfunctional family? There are none. I mean, that's pretty much what I learned. I mean, there was some privacy, but just emotionally and mentally and things like that, they're just very little. And for some families, those boundaries are totally ripped up to pieces in terms of boundaries. So there were little to no boundaries growing up. Boundaries were to be intruded upon, and you were not to have boundaries. I am to dictate who you are, how you feel, what you think, what you do. None of this, you want to be yourself kind of boundary. That is not acceptable, and it's not generally acceptable in narcissistic home, alcoholic home, often toxically divorced homes, all kinds of dysfunctional homes. we could not say this is what I would like and have it respected, because we often weren't respected. And why weren't we respected? Because my parents did not respect themselves. And why were they not respecting themselves? Because their parents were not respecting them as a valued child or an adult. Didn't mean there was no love. There was love in my family, but it just gets tied in with a whole bunch of other things, as many of you know. So those unresolved attachments are what's so important for setting boundaries. If I go, I don't think I can tell my coworker, I don't think I can tell my coworker that I'd really like her to not play her radio while we're working and she sits right next to me. She may get all upset. I got to work with her. I need to just make her happy. I should just comply and just be a people pleaser. And then I'm just irritated every time I go to work and hear her playing music I don't want to hear, because she's not putting on headphones. She's playing it low, but it's still irritating. And I need to set a boundary about that, a work boundary. Oftentimes we will not want to do that because of what happened to us long ago. When we did try to tell someone no, or we felt voiceless or invisible, then we've got to go back and begin to heal that invisibility. And even practice what would we say now in those situations back then. How would we contemporize that past in which I learned not to have boundaries? Because I wish I would have, I really wish I could have learned boundary setting early on. But my dysfunctional programming taught me boundary setting was hurtful or offensive. That's what boundary setting is. It will only hurt other people, and they will be offended if you set a boundary, because you'll sound better than them. It's selfish. Just all kinds of messages that come with setting boundaries. And so we want to resolve those unresolved attachments from the past, where your boundaries, as Real Deal Prime says, where my boundaries were taken down. I want to begin to rebuild those boundaries back then. And I can journal about that. I can talk to a coach about that. And I can talk to our therapist, and I can talk to someone and go, hey, this is when I was told what I wanted didn't matter. And then I go back and go, but I do matter. And I did matter then. I was a child, no doubt. I couldn't just stand up to the big people, parents, older siblings, etc. But I can go back and begin to resist that negation of my boundaries and see it very clearly, and also see it as, okay, little Jerry, you're not getting your boundary met now. I see that. They're ignoring that. But now I'm with you, big Jerry. I'm the adult now. You're not just a little child in the midst of big people and giants. I'm with you now. And I'm not going to let somebody ignore you. Or how would I say, diss you regarding your boundaries. Now, some people may ignore you. Some people may even diss your boundaries. But then I got something for them. And what I mean is I don't mean weaponizing anything. What I got is, then I need to adjust me with regard to you. And I'm going to get to that in a minute. So unresolved attachments can help you set, healing unresolved attachments can help you set better boundaries. If you're enmeshed with a mother or father or family, you're going to have a tough time setting boundaries. We're going to have to learn some separateness and some detachment and some self-differentiation. Once you start learning some of that self-differentiation and start moving that way, believe it or not, boundaries become more natural. You feel more calm about them. You feel more confident about them. The more enmeshed we are, then we're just floating around trying to survive with regard to boundaries, because then anybody can, pull us by the nose anywhere they want us to go. And boundaries are in which I nail my foot to the floor. Now you can take me all around, but you're not taking me anywhere else. My foot is still nailed. And I think someone mentioned internal boundaries, that the more we detach in here, the more we will have internal boundaries, which will translate to external boundaries. And then I don't feel so bad, in saying, hey, and I mean no harm. This is my boundary, and I mean no harm. It's not for weaponizing. It's for me doing, and then I'm going to get to this, self-care. Secondly, from an adult child of dysfunctional family perspective, good boundaries often feel harsh, as I've been describing, rejecting. They're full of guilt for even both parties, shame for both parties, and detachment, healthy distance, feels unloving, selfish, uppity, you're better than me. It has all of those dynamics, but that's just the programming from the toxic family programming. That's not reality. It's what we think. It's how we experience boundaries, but we've been taught to experience it that way. If you are taught to feel guilty if you set a boundary with me, I can do a lot to control you. I mean, then I'm in control. And so I need you to feel guilty, and I need you to feel that system's guilt, because that's not true guilt. If I set a boundary and say, please don't step on my foot, and I feel guilty, is that real guilt? Is that genuine guilt? Is that true guilt? No. Why should I feel guilty about saying, please don't step on my foot? And I don't want you to do that again, please. I should feel no guilt about that whatsoever. There shouldn't be any guilt about that. But I still feel guilty. Guess where that comes from? That's the old systems guilt that starts to creep up in my lower brain here and starts to creep up and starts to get me. But if I can recognize that wait a minute, this is false guilt. This is not true guilt. True guilt is when I've done something I shouldn't have done. Not done something as I reflect on it as an adult, and it's totally okay and appropriate. Yeah, if you really loved me, you would swallow this poison because I want you to. Exactly. And then if I say, no, I don't want to swallow that poison, well, what's wrong with you? Well, actually, I don't know. Maybe I'm healthy. Maybe there's nothing wrong with me. I don't want to do it. And I'm surprised you're even suggesting I do. So we have, again, good boundaries, once you start doing them, are going to feel awkward, rejecting, full of guilt. They might feel harsh. Or then we also have the issue of, and then I'm not really worthy to set a boundary. I'm just not that important. And all of that's an illusion too. That is an illusion. That's family systems think from a dysfunctional family that you're not worth being able to set a boundary. And we have come to believe that. And And that if we, well, and that's a good belief to have in a dysfunctional family because it keeps the family dysfunctional. You don't want people just going out there on their own and becoming healthy. That's going to mess up the family system quite a bit, and they're going to be really uncomfortable. Really uncomfortable. Let me continue here. Thirdly, try to use boundaries as self-love and self-preference and self-needs. In other words, use boundaries to adjust your emotional location with other people. And if you notice, I said emotional location, because that distance or space is very important. Like in my videos, I talk about the tennis court. And if somebody's over on my side of the tennis court, we're enmeshed. If I'm over on their side of the tennis court, we're enmeshed. And I want to be on my side, I want them on their side. Well, if they've jumped all the way over to my side, then I need to adjust my emotional distance with them. And I may want to go end round and go over on the other side of the tennis court. They can stay on this side, I'm going to stay on this side. But I'm not staying over here with them. My boundaries are going to tell me what do I need to do. What are the consequences if they don't? What am I going to do? Use boundaries to adjust your emotional location with them. More separateness, more space. Maybe we call it contact adjustment. Again, I don't want to set a boundary to make them change, because I can't change somebody else. You know who I have the power over to change? Me. I can change me. And I can give them the information that I want them to have in a boundary or suggestion or preference. You can ask someone, please don't do that. If someone jumps over to your side of the tennis net emotionally, and all asking you all up and say, hey, how much do you make for a living? And the how much do you make for a living? How much do you pay for that car? Just all intrusive kind of questions that we might get. If they're over on your side, you can ask them, oh, well, I think, that's not something I really want to talk about. I'm not sure why you're asking, but, I just don't know that we need to discuss that today. I can do that, and if they are okay with that, or they accept that, then we're fine. If they don't, then I got to jump over on the other side of the tennis net. Then I need more distance in this relationship because you're not respecting, even when I'm trying to put a regulator between us. Because boundaries can actually help us get closer. And I know that may sound crazy. When a couple comes to me and they're married and they are very, very distant with each other, do you know what that tells me? They're way too close. And so, they're way too close emotionally. And that's why they have to maintain that distance. And they often don't recognize that. I wouldn't have either. But it is a way to get out of that dynamic. So, again, we're not trying to change them, we're trying to change us. They're for us to regulate ourselves. And if someone's willing to accept my boundary, fine. If they're not, then I need to make some adjustments, whether that be with a narcissist or whatever. I can make that attempt. If they have no interest in respecting me, I need some emotional distance, and I might even need some physical distance. Physical distance does not equate physical distance does not equate to emotional distance. Some people can be enmeshed with their family, go move 2,000 miles away, they're still enmeshed with their family. It's just they're not as close, or they don't talk as often, or don't see each other. But I think it's really something that you want to consider that I always try to go with emotional distance first to work on that, then physical distance. Unless there's abuse, unless there's physicality, then okay, all bets are off. I'm not saying that. We don't stay there for abuse. But if they're just good neurotic folks who got issues, then what we want to do is to try to set emotional boundaries first and get some distance in here. Then if we need physical distance, then we go with the physical distance. But I'm going to take whatever distance I got to take if you are not willing to accept my boundaries. Then I'll go to the nth to do whatever distance I got to do. Not because I want to, but because you are requiring me to. And I think that's what so many people don't realize. And yeah, stealing your car would not necessarily be a good thing. And certainly I'd be going, no, if you're going to be into stealing my car, then I need more distance. Quite a bit more distance. Because you're acting sociopathically or whatever you're doing. And the, where was it? Oh, I'm prepared to do whatever distance I need to do to honor my boundaries. And guess who I'm standing up for? Me. Standing up for me. And that's what I've missed for so long. We didn't stand up for us and weren't taught to stand up for us. In fact, we were taught not to stand up for us. I also, number 4, I wanted to talk about briefly, be emotionally and mentally prepared for worst case. And by the way, I've got a online program that's going to be starting here, I think May 7th. There is a pre-launch discount that you can get up until May 6th if you want to do the program. And I talk much more about all of these things and go into great detail and exercises. And I really encourage you to take a look at that on the website and check that out. I think you will find it. I wish I would have had these modules that I have for this online program, which is a self-paced learning program, 35, 40 years ago. If I'd had that somewhere that I could go listen to more of that, it would have been a life changer for me. I had to learn a little slower because I had to go a little different way because there wasn't as much out there then. And there certainly wasn't as much for lay people like you and I. I've become a professional, but as a lay person, you know, I needed somebody who could explain it in lay terms that I could understand and use and benefit and grow. So, fourthly, be emotionally, mentally prepared for worst case. And again, I think that's what's important. If I'm going to set a boundary, think about the worst case situation. What's the worst that they could do? Whatever it is, prepare for that. Now, if it doesn't happen, then you're in a good position. If it does happen, then you're ready to take whatever steps you need to take at that point. But plan and prepare, and I always try to help people plan and prepare for their boundary setting. It shouldn't just be off the cuff, because many times off the cuff means, oh, they're just upset right now, I don't have to pay attention to what they're saying, because often we're setting boundaries via reactivity. Boundaries via reactivity often doesn't work. Boundaries via adult us, calm us, direct us, that's much more powerful. And I can remember even making statements to a family member where, I would say, hey, I just want to tell you, I do not want you to ever say that again to me. That's the adult Jerry talking. I'm not overreactive. I'm not hating the person. I'm just saying I do not want you to ever say that to me again. And in my mind, I'm going, if they do, I have my plan. I've got the plan. Because that crossed the boundary. And I need to become serious. Not so overly serious that I can't, that I'm frozen, but I need to become serious about this. Now, they may take it as not serious. Oh, Jerry, you're just so oversensitive. Oh, this is no big deal. I stay serious and go, I understand that's how you feel. I just want you to never say that to me again. And be quiet and stop and let that hang out there. And then if they choose to ignore that, well, then I need more internal and external distancing from them because of their own choosing, not because of mine, but because of their own choosing. I'm not trying to end the relationship or make it worse, but I won't put up with any relationship just for a relationship. That's kind of suicidal. And I think, and I've said so many times, even with families and friends, and, I can live without my family. I don't want to, but I can live without my family. But I cannot live without self-love. That's much more, and self-compassion and self-care. I can't live without that. And I think that's an important thing to remember. Well, there have been a number of comments that I've seen gone by here. I would be open to taking just a couple questions today if you have some. Yes, and then I just had a comment about religion and religion in the families. Yeah, you sprinkle in unhealthy religion, and then you've got a problem. And a lot of families, there will be some unhealthy religious dynamics in there that are not healthy spirituality, not healthy views of God. And I'm not judging anybody's beliefs, but I though I do have a standard, and the standard is healthy spirituality. And I know that some people don't even believe it needs to be healthy. It just needs to be whatever they believe the Bible is, or the Quran, and I think healthy spirituality, healthy religion is so very important. And I've taught religion and psychology for years, and I don't know everything. Certainly not. I wish I did. If you're, I think I read that question. Your mother was, I just missed it, and I wish I could, why can I not have my, there it is, there, I got it. Now I can actually, your comments kept disappearing for me, I'm sorry. Now, I got it. Now, how come they disappeared again? Okay. Well, I think, Beth, it's a good question. What if your mother, has CPTSD from childhood abuse and bad marriage to a pastor? Should I be more forgiving and understanding? Well, I'm always for more forgiveness and understanding. I think I can have forgiveness and understanding for a malignant narcissist. Now, that doesn't mean that I want to live with them, and that doesn't mean I want to have lots of interaction with them. Because I think even those who have personality disorders suffer as well. And I do have some compassion for them. But it's like having compassion for a sociopath is problematic. I still have some compassion for a sociopath. They can't form healthy relationships. They don't care about anybody or anything. I think that's very sad. I have compassion for them, but that doesn't mean I'm going to leave my wallet out. And so I think it's okay to have that. And then also, I like to challenge those who've grown up, who have grown up with abuse or been in a bad marriage and had struggles, that I can, and see, I don't neutrality, as a comment just made, I don't think having neutrality means you have no compassion. I think compassion and neutrality can go together. That's what I believe, and I've experienced that. And you can have compassion and neutrality. My mother could be a big victim, and poor her, and this and that, and I have compassion for her. I knew how she grew up. I knew what she went through. I knew what's gone on, and I know, how she set up her own life and things like that, and I have compassion, etc., for her. But what she is willing to do. What is she willing to do for herself, and how does her dysfunction interfere with respecting me and valuing me as a person? And I have a high standard for that. I have some standard, but not, if somebody doesn't like me, okay, then they don't like me. Fine, that's cool. But basic respect is what's very important. And I think that's where that neutrality comes from. I can respect people on a basic level, and that I'm still have some connectedness with them, and I have respect for them, or can treat them respectfully. I may not respect their behavior, but like with the mother in that situation, she's been through a lot. You can have compassion as long as it doesn't become contagious dysfunction for you. I don't want to pick up any fleas from people who have been through lots of bad things, who have no interest in changing. Who are not interested in changing themselves and trying to get better, or trying to listen, or trying to heal, or trying to recover, trying to do the best they can. And I value something with people trying to do the best they can. And I know some people's best can be pretty minimum. And how much compassion your values are, what your beliefs are, that all comes into how connected you want to be. But the obligation is not there. And so I'm always for love and compassion, and then let's see how things go. And is there room enough in this relationship for me to exist? Like with the mother, and your mother could be anybody out there. Lots of fathers, mothers, brothers, sisters, friends. If they've been through a hard time, gone through lots of difficulties, I have compassion for that. But does our relationship have room for me? And unfortunately, the more traumatized you are, the more dysfunctional you've been dysfunctionally programmed, oftentimes does not leave room for other people in the relationship. It's all about them. It's all about them. Now, if it's not, then you have some room to maneuver if you want to continue a relationship with a family member because, again, most every relationship has some good parts and bad parts. I haven't found too many relationships that only have one. I'm sure there's some few that have one side, but most have some good parts and bad parts. I just don't want the bad parts interfering with my sense of wellness, wholeness, my sense of self, and my own value. It can't challenge those. I've worked too hard, and I am too valuable for that. I'm not too good for that. I'm too valuable for that. And what I mean by that is I'm not better than anybody else. I am just knowing that I am important for me. That's what I'm important to me and for me. That's what I mean. Any other questions someone might have? See if I can. Ooh, that's a pretty good question. I can't, I might, yeah, I'm glad you sent that again. I can't stop feeling jealous of my golden child sister. I'm the scapegoat. My parents just think of me as subordinate, and I can never seem to change my status. Great question. And I have some videos on, scapegoating and being a scapegoat, because I think there's a very powerful family role, and understanding why we're in that role is very important. And then also understanding that I first have to get the role out of me rather than waiting on them to change so that I will feel less like a scapegoat, if that makes any sense. The role's got to come out of me. They're going to keep, they need that role. They need you in that role. So they're not going to be very amenable to, oh, well, you're right. We have been kind of treating you as a scapegoat. I think we'll all change. Shall we all vote and change and not have her be a scapegoat? No, they're not going to do that. They're going to keep doing the scapegoat because it fits the family dynamics of unresolved anger, unresolved attachment issues, frustrations, guilt, shame, addictions, all kinds of things. All that's wrapped up in there in the dysfunctional family, and then it has to go somewhere, and it will go to roles. The lost child suffers because of all of that anger and stuff going in there. The scapegoat suffers because we got to have a place to put all this crap emotionally, and it's not conscious, it's unconscious. It may seem conscious to you to see them do this, but it's generally unconscious. They actually think they're doing the right thing. I mean, and you're kind of going, what? Because they are programmed too. They have their own programming. So I got to deal with my programming. How do I get scapegoat out of me rather than how can I get them to stop scapegoating me? That can reverse the polarity of what's going on in terms of the emotional circuitry that's going on between the two. The more I try to resist it with them, the more they will probably stick me in that corner of being the scapegoat. The more I let go of it, and the more I deal with that on my own and deal with my sense of being a scapegoat and how I feel about it, how I feel about me, how I choose to live. Let's see here. Why the golden child doesn't necessarily have a better situation than the scapegoat role can shift sometimes, but it's the same circus of insanity. Absolutely. And if roles can change in families. I've been the scapegoat and the golden child, and I've been the lost child, and I've lived long enough that I've had lots of opportunities to audition for different parts in the family. That was kind of an unconscious audition, I'll have to say that. But it is the same circus. And so what we want to do is not shift roles, but to get all the way out of the box. Not just shift places within the box. We want to get all the way out of the box. So that scapegoat, lost child, those are not me. They are not me. They're absolutely not me. You can behave the way you want to behave, family. Hey, I can't stop you from behaving that way. But it's all rather silly. And ridiculous. And if you're going to keep me as a scapegoat and you're not going to invite me to Thanksgiving and Christmas dinners, and then I need to work on getting other plans for Thanksgiving and Christmas. Because I don't have to have those gatherings to be happy and healthy. I don't have to. And would it be nice? Of course, it would be nice. But a lot of me having a brand new sports car would be nice. But can I be happy without one? Yes, I can. And I think so. Those different roles. It's interesting because when I talk about getting the family out of you, that's again a part of the program that is coming up May 7th. That has 6 large modules, exercises, things that go along with that. There's a pre-launch discount for anyone who signs up before May 6th or before, I believe. And I really think it would be worthwhile to check that out. It even has a money-back guarantee. If you're not changed by this module, I don't know what to tell you. I'm not a perfect teacher. I'm not the ideal vessel for all of this information. I'm really not. I wish I were. Other people might do it much better than I do. But I really do believe you will not be the same after this program. And I've had people say that before. This is, hey, I've been in therapy for 20 years and nobody ever said anything like this. Because I like this perspective and I think it's the most helpful. Because that's why I chose it for myself. This is my own recovery program, my own recovery theory that have come from others. I mean, I've certainly borrowed from others. There's no doubt now. I give credit to them. But I really think it's the best way to look at your relationships and how you change and make real change, not just shift around the circus, not just go from here and then you fall back into the rut, but I mean real change where you don't go back into the same rut. That's what I consider real change. Well, I think I need to call it a day. Please check out that online program. There's also a new mini training that I have available. It's totally free. It is totally free, and you can get 84 minutes of training just for signing up to watch it. So please feel free to do that. And I think that's another thing I want to give away here. And I want to thank you all for watching. I'm going to be coming back on live hopefully tomorrow and maybe even for the next few days. Thank you so much for your questions. You have a great day. And be wise. Hi, everyone. My name is Jerry Wise. I'm a life and relationship coach, and I've been working with people for over 40 years to help them with recovery and also bring a message of self-differentiation, which I think is a powerful way and stage of healing. I hope you'll subscribe to this YouTube channel. Press subscribe. I hope you'll join this YouTube channel. Click the button join, and for a couple dollars a month, you can help support the free videos that I put up here. I have with me my friend and associate, Yitz Goldberg, who is one of our associates here on staff. and he sees clients and works with folks who deal with all of these issues as well. He and I have been working together for a long time. And welcome, Yitz.
Hi, Jerry. Good to be here. Back on another principle. Today we have principle number 9 in the series of principles of self-differentiation.
And we have also been talking about the principles, and we could probably do 150 principles before we're done. Because I think Bowen family systems, or family systems way of looking at recovery, life, culture, society, is just such a deep well to draw from. And there's so much there. And we've talked about how we could just go through one of these books and just read the underlined portions of some really good books and just really probably learn a lot for ourselves, and also bring understanding and richness to others as well.
Yeah.
So let's do this one. Number 9.
Okay. Number 9. Principle number 9 would be the very presence of differentiation in a person will stir up anxious response. And when I think about...
What do you mean by that?
So I think for someone who's doing this work, it's very easy to want the world to accept the changes that we are applying in our own life in order for greater differentiation from others. But it's important to remember that differentiating work and differentiating from others often challenges the status quo. And it is important to remember that, well, you are doing the right thing, the other person is used to something else. And when you go ahead and do what you think is right, you are basically rewriting the unspoken contract between you and the other person. And that could bring up an anxious response in the other person because they're used to something very specific from you. And suddenly you're coming in and setting a boundary or expressing yourself in a way you've never done before, showing parts of yourself you didn't know that exist, or at least you didn't show them that exist. So this principle is about remembering that differentiating could stir up anxious responses in those around us. And not only it could, it probably will. And it probably should. And we need to be okay with that. We need to be prepared for that.
And differentiation, being yourself while staying connected to the system. And the thing is, we're always connected to the system, whether we engage the system or not. We're still connected to the system. We're still connected to the relationships and relationship. And that's why I've told people, a geographical cure doesn't fix family issues. You can move 2,000 miles away, you're still connected to the system. The system is in you. And when I was thinking about this principle, I remember reading, and I don't remember exactly where, but I think of the difference when I'm going to differentiate, meaning I'm going to be myself in a relationship system, marriage, parent-child, church, work, synagogue, whatever family of origin, that often we have thought of it as a billiard ball connection, meaning I move the billiard ball and it hits other balls. But the problem with the billiard ball analogy is it doesn't show the connection enough. It just shows that bump rather than how it's all interconnected. And so I might use an analogy of, say, a mobile, where you have all the strings and all the pieces that are connected in a mobile. And then if you pull one piece of the mobile, it shifts everything in the mobile. And I think that's what happens when we differentiate, when we declare ourselves on certain emotionally charged issues, or when we say no, or when we give our opinion in a calm, matter-of-fact way. Certainly, if we do it in a reactive way, we're really going to pull on that mobile piece really hard, and it's going to shake up the whole system. And that's why I think it's good to train people to, as you grab a hold of your piece of the mobile, which is you, and as you move it towards self-differentiation, it shifts everyone else. But we want to do it with the least amount of reactivity or raising up of anxiety of other people.
Yeah. And being aware of the anxiety that could come up when you make that move.
When you make
Because
that
if
move.
you're aware that you're moving the mobile and that will move other people as well, then obviously they have the right to respond to that movement, and they probably will respond to that
Probably
movement.
will. And with the billiard ball, I have a limited view. I'm a billiard ball and I hit this other ball, another family member or something, then it may hit some other balls, but I don't worry about those. I'm only hitting the one ball and that's all I see. Whereas a mobile, I think you can see more of the impact of it.
Yeah.
And
it's realizing that we are always connected, and we could be connected in an enmeshed, unaware way, and then we are reactive, and then we carry the anxiety, right? Because when we're enmeshed, then we are taking a lot of the anxiety onto ourselves, and then we are responding according to what's expected. And the other opposite would be to stay connected, to recognize that we are connected, but we have more awareness in that connection, and we are more aware of our rights in that connection, what we want, what we need, what we feel, and even what the other person wants and what they need and feel, but that's their responsibility to take care of.
I was just having a thought of, let's say I become very, very self-differentiated. I'm very calm. My issues, I've worked on and resolved a number of them. I feel connected while also feeling free to be myself. I'm still connected to the system, and there can be chronic anxiety in the system, even though it may be impacting me less. So even if I'm very self-differentiated, doesn't mean at some later time the system may become highly charged, and now it challenges my self-differentiation, even though I might have a lot of it, or have a great degree of self-differentiation. If something were to occur, it could really challenge that, because that anxiety in the system has a lot to do with how my flexibility to adjust, to stay myself, to be detached while staying connected, I have to do that can be challenged by things that happen, a death, a suicide, a family conflict, a loss of job, a fire. I mean, all kinds of things that can happen. Having to go live with relatives for a while, or, that can really challenge our anxiety meters that we have inside of us.
Yeah.
And again, I think that anxiety, that emotional field, is always at work, even when we don't notice it. It's still at work. And I think of, we think of a gravity field. You have gravity,
Then you have the field of gravity field. Well, we have emotional and the field. We have an emotional field, and it works much like gravity would work. And it's because gravity is always present, at least in our existence and on our planet. It's always present. Now you can either work with that gravity or work against that gravity, or you can, that's um, and and I think that's and it has an effect on our bodies, our physicalness. It has effect on everything. What you drop and how hard it hits, and gravity is an emotional there's a gravity field, and then there's the emotional field, much like in the world.
Yeah.
Only this
Bowen
is
talks
between
about
people.
Bowen talks about the tension between togetherness and separation and differentiation. How there's always tension there, and we're trying to, because on one hand we need the togetherness. It's human to need that togetherness, but at the same time we need that separation and differentiation. And if we view a system with that tension always existing, from all parts of the system, not only from myself versus the other people, but also the other people with me and the other people between each other, then there's always anxiety inside that system, and the different movements that happen affect that tension. Now, the more differentiated people are in that system, and the more people understand differentiation and are emotionally are emotionally differentiated, or at least higher on the level of differentiation,
Or
then
have greater
really,
detachment.
yeah. So these movements would stir up less anxiety than if people are less differentiated, and then the anxiety that would stir up could be much higher and much greater.
And I think with using an example of, say, I work with clients who might have narcissistic parents or narcissistic siblings or something like that, and they become so over focused on the narcissist. Not that the narcissist has not caused great trauma or difficulties for them, it has. But then the narcissist in our lives growing up, and as we get older, then the narcissist has so much ability to stir up anxiety within us. And I see that as more of the problem that really keeps recovery from happening, because they can stir up so much anxiety because we are either trauma bonded or we're enmeshed, and often abuse and other kinds of things create enmeshment. And I want to help them work on that enmeshment so it's less, so that perpetrator or that narcissist, they are able to do more of a so what. They are able to do more of a it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what they think kind of approach to life, so they're not pinged so much by them. But that's taking a systems way of looking at the problem, right, versus just a cognitive way, which is, well, if they call you stupid, you just say, no, I'm not. Well, that's a cognitive. I mean, we don't want to believe we're stupid. We want to deal with those thoughts. But how do we deal with the pinging that we have, the reactivity that we have when the narcissist goes about and lies to other people about us? That pings us and gets us all. And I try to help people to go, the best way you can get that to stop is to stop having it affect you. And because that's a part of the whole system. They tell somebody else believes their lie, somebody else believes this about you, you're pinged because you know it's happening, and then you're just pinged by everything in the system. Yeah. If you can become more neutral and more detached, it tends to settle down even the power of that flying monkeys or the triangulating or the what's going on with the narcissist who's lying about you.
Yeah,
And that's
often
how
when a client would diagnose or even say something about the narcissist, then I will try to ask, and when you communicate or relate to that so-called narcissist or whatever, to a narcissist in general, what happens to you? What do you feel? What type of reactions do you have? Where do you lose yourself? Kind of where do you have a hard time?
Great
Yeah.
question.
And for me, I even do this like on myself. Obviously, it's harder to always be on top of that. But when I feel anxious, being in a relationship with someone, the right question would be is what in that person brings up these parts in me, and what do I do about it? Because they could be a narcissist. It could be they're not a narcissist. I don't know what they are, but I'm not sure if it matters. At the end of the day, it's my life to take care of myself, and the narcissist, they could take care of themselves if they're interested. And if not, that leaves me with dealing with the fact that they don't want to do something about it.
And people will stay connected to those people because they feel they're doing something unjust or wrong or are hurting them in some way. And I want to become neutral about the unjustness. I want to become detached from the hurtfulness. I want to become detached in those ways so that I'm neutral. It does not matter. You can do whatever you want to do, and I don't say that lightly. I understand how difficult that can be just from my own life and all the struggles I've been through. And but I also think it's such an important work to not be pinged by others pinging or anxiousness. And I think when I think about an example where, let's say, an older sister or whatever calls you stupid and believes you're the bad one in the family, how does that affect you? How does that affect you emotionally? Because I don't want to deal so much with the reality of are you stupid, because you're not. So I mean, why are we even trying to sort that out? Are you stupid or are you not stupid? Are you bad or are you not bad? I mean, it's a focus on something that isn't even worthy of the discussion. It's someone calls you stupid so that they will ping you emotionally, not so they can have a debate with you about your stupidness, or weigh it out. That's not what they're doing. They're wanting to get that emotional response. And if we can self-regulate to not have that emotional response, then we really and truly become different in a genuine, real way. And I like people to move to the detached position of, those are their thoughts. And in fact, I'm not even sure they truly believe those thoughts, because it's kind of ridiculous. It's really meant to hurt or to ping or to put you in a one down position or something in the system. And then we come to accept, now, I'm not stupid. And I'm not going to believe that. I'm going to allow her to believe that if she wants to believe that. And then we want to be our change and not then attack them with our change. I am not stupid. You're the one that's stupid. You're the one stupid for calling me stupid. Now I've just attacked them with my change rather than being my change, which is, I'm not stupid. I don't know why you need to say that. I guess you do. And that's being my change rather than attacking them. And we do that in a calm, matter-of-fact way.
and being the change will bring up the anxiety in the person. Because when we talk about differentiating and stirring up anxiety, basically when we differentiate, we are forcing the other person to differentiate as well. And we are forcing them without wanting to force them. It just happens within the process. You're basically making them reevaluate their own response. And
emotionally, also mentally, cognitively,
yeah,
right?
yeah. And sometimes they might do a better job differentiating, and sometimes they might not do such a good job. But as long as we stay on the stance of differentiation, it would continue forcing the other person to differentiate accordingly.
And that's where the what I want to say, we put pressure on them to adapt. They may adapt more positively, they may adapt more negatively, but we are putting pressure on them to adapt to our being our own change, how we see ourselves, being our true selves. And I think the good news about being able to see this is it helps keep you more calm, and because you're able to see things differently, rather than let's just engage in the conflict or the distance or the reactivity or the battle. Let's just engage in the battle, which often maintains the status quo rather than really brings about any kind of change.
Yeah. This does, understanding this principle really does calm down the ability and even expectations of differentiation, right? Of when we come to set a boundary we've never set, or when we request something we've never requested. If we're aware that the other person could and probably will respond anxiously, or even with some intensity, and we are okay with that even before we enter the situation or the relationship, then it just makes things much easier from the start, and it allows you more space and more flexibility to differentiate and to be you, while allowing the other person to be them. We filmed a video called, I think it was titled "How to Be Mature in an Immature Relationship."
Mm-hmm.
And in that video, we go a lot deeper into this subject of really allowing other people to be immature while you're staying mature. And I think a lot of what was said in that video was on this line of, you need to prepare for it. Like, you need to know that by you being mature, you're challenging other people's maturity and you're challenging other people's immaturity. And yeah, people respond out of anxiety when you challenge their maturity. I respond anxiously when someone challenges my maturity or my immaturity.
I know you have, and I have as well, many people ask you, Yitz, what should I do with this, with my father? What should I do with my family? What should I do with my husband? What, give me your thoughts and tell me what should I do. Often when they ask me for that advice, I kind of come up short at that point, because I'm going, I could give you some superficial things that maybe could be of help, but I don't know how much it's going to really change anything, especially in the mode and the way you're operating within your gravity field or your emotional field right now. So what I think about is, to give you that advice, I need to know where you are on the mobile. And if we pulled this, what would happen all the way over here? And then second of all, what would be a good strategy? Should you turn right or should you turn left? Without a systems view, you might turn left. With a systems view, you might turn right. And so they tell me, well, should I turn right or left? And I'm going, I don't know. I don't see enough to be able to tell you which to do. I mean, I can give you general principles, love people, be nice, I mean, I can give you those kind of things, but they're really looking for solutions, and what would be the best course of action? Well, the best course of action would be if we could see where you are and what place and role you play in the system and how you function in it, and then devise strategies and plans to move or to shift. And not always are those intuitive. And many times they're not intuitive, they're counterintuitive, are the things that we may be the best move. And
Yeah.
see, most of the things people want from me are intuitive answers. Just give me some intuitive answers, Jerry, that just make sense. Well, okay, be nice, don't be reactive, don't get angry, just state your own truth. Da da da. I mean, those are all good things, but it's not taking in the whole or the mobile, of which I could give you better advice, because maybe the answer is for you to stir up a little trouble. Well, what if I told somebody, oh, well, what should I do, Jerry? Well, stir up a little trouble. Okay, see you. And I haven't even gotten to explain what I mean by that. And how does that all, why would I say that from the perspective of a system or mobile? Or
Yeah.
why would I go tell your parent that you're okay with being a bad child? That may be the right answer, but they're not ready for that answer. They don't see how this all works, which makes that answer make sense. And they're not ready to state that answer out of their own change. And so if I give them the right answer, it's not helpful.
Right. I was gonna respond to the question that the question itself is not a systems view question, because if it was a systems view question, then most probably they would have came up with some better solution by themselves, with the ability to see the system with all its parts, with the positives and with the negatives and with the anxiety that might come up, and with the anxiety that I'm trying to avoid but taking on myself or keeping by me. And very often, one way, if they're not ready to see the systems view yet, I could ask what would happen, how would you respond if they respond to you anxiously? Like, what would happen to you
or
if,
reactively?
Yeah, right. And sometimes that could give enough flexibility to go ahead and stir up some anxiety on purpose, not out of any harm, but just because that's kind of necessary, and it needs to happen.
To shift the polarity in the system, we may need to do something counterintuitive.
Right.
But I don't know that because I don't know enough about the system. And so there are lots of answers that could be possible, but we want good answers, right, and we want helpful answers. And as you mentioned just now, the question is pregnant with how we see things or how we don't see things. Our questions always reveal where we are in our viewing.
Right.
That's my own questions come out of my subjectivity, my awareness. I can only ask a question out of what I know. How can I ask a question out of what I don't know? And there may be a lot we don't know. And so that's why when I think about those kind of questions, it's like, are you ready for the anxiety that you may stir up if you were to choose to do this? Oh no, I'm not ready for that, but I want to do something different. So I'll go to Thanksgiving and tell everybody at the dinner table, Uncle Bob sexually abused me. are you ready for what will happen at that point? Not that you should always keep it a secret. I'm not saying that you should keep your mouth shut and never say anything about trauma or abuse. But if you're not thinking in a systems way, you probably will end up doing more damage to yourself and others than actually growing and actually becoming yourself, which is the goal. Unless you're just wanting to get vengeance and, what I would call it, square the ledger. Unless you're going to square the ledger, then you can blow up anything you want. But squaring the ledger is not the same thing as maturing and healing and recovery. It's not, and often, many times, I think can get in the way of that. It gets in the way of our healing, recovery, and maturity. Well, we've about come to the end of our time. Any other thoughts you wanted to share, Yitz, on number 9? The presence of differentiation in a person will still stir up anxiety or an anxious response in others.
It's just remembering that anxiety is part of the system, and it's okay that it's like that. Sometimes when you are very clear about who you are, then anxiety might come up, and that's okay. And it's a journey of learning to be okay with that anxiety and not taking it too personally, learning to work through the emotions of guilt and shame and anger that might come up, but it's always there, and sometimes it might be there more than other times. But it's learning to be okay that it's there, and learning to define ourselves always according to what the system, what's happening in the system.
The notion that we function out of our personality or our background may not be as strong as influencer as our position and functioning in the system. And that's one of the kind of a Bowen notion. Not that our backgrounds don't matter, not that our personalities or psychology doesn't matter, but I think so often our place in the system and how we function there is either not seen or minimized. And I think that's what we've been trying to do, is raise that issue more. Well, I want to thank you, Yitz, for being here today.
Thank you, Jerry, for having me.
And you're welcome. It's great, always. We're going to continue with some more principles, and I hope you'll watch the whole series. We have a number of them. Again, today we're on number 9. I think we have 10 and 11 that are coming up. And please subscribe to this YouTube channel. Join as a member for a very small amount each month to get free videos. And I want to thank you all for joining us today. I hope you have a great day, and be wise.
Hi, my name is Jerry Wise. Today I'd like to present a video entitled 7 Keys to Learning How to Empathize. Empathy is a real problem these days for marriages, for relationships, in politics, and in lots of areas of our society. I work primarily with marriages and couples, and I also work with families and helping people to grow within their family of origins so that they can be healthier, happier people. This video came out of a need that I saw in individuals who struggled with the skill of empathy. I work with a lot of folks who are adult children of dysfunctional families, and empathy is a real problem. Many times individuals have not had the experience of empathy in their lives and have difficulties practicing it in their relationships. It does not come naturally. Well, let me share, what is empathy? Empathy is the ability to feel and share another person's emotions. I mean that in a healthy way. I think many times codependents are overly fused with other people and feel into and share into other people's emotions and feelings. The problem is they're not aware of their own, and that ends up being hyper empathizing with a very low ability to be aware and express your own emotions, creating a problem we call codependency. Empathy is a healthy ability to feel and share another person's emotions while being a self and being a healthy you. Some believe that empathy involves the ability to match another's emotions, while others believe that empathy involves being tender-hearted towards another person. There are a number of definitions regarding empathy, but empathy is very important for communication, and particularly for relationship communication. Since empathy involves understanding and sharing emotional states of other people, this skill is essential for healthy and happy marriages with less conflict. Well, first of all, I wanted to share, why is empathy or empathizing so hard? These reasons are the most common that I have found. People have trouble empathizing because they feel, if I empathize, I feel I become vulnerable. If I take your side or understanding your side, it makes me far too vulnerable. And so I stay on my side, working hard not to empathize. Second, if I empathize, it weakens my position because it proves that I agree with you. Many people see empathy as a sign of agreement. Again, if I understand your thoughts, understand your feelings, and share and understand what's going on with you emotionally, I therefore must agree with you. So since I cannot agree with you, because I may not agree with you, then I don't empathize. Because that would make me too vulnerable, that would also give up my position or my beliefs. Some believe that empathy is an expression of personal weakness. If I don't stay strong in my position, which means not empathizing with you, then I am being weak. If I empathize with someone, I am somehow being soft or weak in the relationship. Another reason why I think empathizing can be so difficult, particularly in marriage relationships, if I empathize with you, I will have to deal with my fears. Because one problem I might have is that if I shared your belief, understood your emotions, it might tap into fears, struggles, feelings that I don't wish to tap into. So I do not empathize. Again, it's too threatening to empathize. So we don't. Another reason, if I empathize, it would be too intimate. And I am allergic to intimacy. A lot of folks have grown up with an allergy to an allergy to intimacy, and as a result, they cannot empathize because it would make a couple or them in the relationship become too close, too real. And empathy has a way of warming up a relationship, bringing two people together when you empathize, and that just may be too much intimacy. And their allergy to intimacy is just too great, so I just can't empathize. what are some of the things that get in the way of empathy? I think having a past experience of hardly ever being empathized with. Folks who grew up in their family of origin and there was very little empathy going on, especially in dysfunctional families, they had little modeling or experience for empathy. So they just really don't know how to do it. They haven't seen it work. They haven't seen how healthy and helpful and warm it feels. And so they just don't have that experience. Some have never learned how to empathize. They weren't taught how do you empathize. Parents didn't say, now when your friend was doing that, let me tell you what you might do, or let me share with you how they might have been thinking or feeling. Parents having not taught that, then the child doesn't learn that as readily. So they have never learned how to empathize, and maybe not even know how to do it. Past abuse can get in the way of empathy. Depression can get in the way of empathy. Counterdependency gets in the way of empathy. Again, if I tend towards a more narcissistic way of looking at the world, it's me-centered, then I have a hard time kind of understanding your part of the world. Because basically my world is what matters, not yours. And that's counterdependency or narcissism. Mood disorders can cause real problems for intimacy because often folks with mood disorders or depression and such, they don't have the insight to do that. Too much anxiety can create difficulties for empathy. Growing up feeling unlovable, growing up feeling unforgivable. If we don't feel lovable and we don't feel forgivable, it is very difficult to empathize with other people. It is just too painful to do that. So let me talk about how can we learn how to empathize. Empathy is not difficult, it just takes practice. Simply, if I thought that way that you think, or saw things the way you see them, I could understand the way you feel. And that's a statement of empathy. If I saw the world from your eyes, I probably would feel that way and think that way. That's empathizing. So what are 7 keys to empathizing? The first key is you got to choose to want to. If you don't want to, you're not going to do it. So we have to choose to will ourselves to be empathetic and to empathize more with those around us or our spouse. Second of all, bracket your thoughts, feelings, and conclusions or arguments and set them on the shelf temporarily. This may not be easy. If we've had a lot of trouble with enmeshment, fusion, dysfunction, it's kind of hard to step outside our own conclusions, thoughts, and feelings. But that can be learned. But first we can work on bracketing them. For right now, and I'm going to practice that, I'm going to set my feelings, emotions, and thoughts over here on the shelf and try to understand yours. That's a very good work, and it will pay off greatly if we practice that. Then after we've bracketed our own thoughts, feelings, emotions, and conclusions, choose the other side. Argue their case mentally. Take their side mentally and emotionally. Take their side. It doesn't mean you don't have your side. It doesn't mean you don't have your experience. But empathy is about taking their side for the moment. Fourthly, learn how to listen or practice active listening. Listen for their feelings and how it would connect to their logic, and how their feelings would connect to their thoughts. In other words, if you thought I was trying to hurt you, then I could understand why you might feel hurt. Now, that doesn't mean I was trying to hurt you, but I can understand if you thought that, I can understand how you could feel this. And again, that's empathy. I'm feeling into your experience. Fifthly, examine where you learned not to empathize.
Do your family of origin work of recovery. That will help you with empathy. Sixth, deal with your anger, resentment, hurt, feelings of betrayal, and look for emotional triangles. Me, them, and them, or it. We often get involved in emotional triangles, which makes it much more difficult for us to empathize. But if we deal with our anger, our resentment, it allows us to empathize with others more. And again, the more we hurt, the less we feel good about ourselves, the more difficult it is to feel into and care about the thoughts and feelings of others. In other words, our bucket is empty. How am I going to hear your bucket or even understand your bucket? So we have to deal with our bucket first so I can empathize more. Seventh, think counterintuitively. In other words, what is not logical or rational or follows in a logical way for your way of thinking. Don't think about how you think and feel. Think about the opposite. In other words, if I'm thinking, well, I didn't try to hurt them, why would they feel hurt? I wasn't trying to hurt them at all. I can't even imagine that. Counterintuitive thinking and feeling would be, if I were to think I was being hurt, then I could understand how I might feel hurt. That's counterintuitive to the way you are thinking and feeling. Because you're thinking and feeling, I absolutely did not hurt them and wouldn't, and that's just nutty. But that's not empathy. Empathy requires us to see it from their eyes, to stand in their shoes, and to feel it from their, and to see the movie from their seat in the movie house, not from our seat. And again, just because I empathize doesn't mean I agree. Because I can say, if you thought I was hurting you, I can understand why you might feel hurt. Whereas I know inside that there was no desire or intention for me to do that at all. So I still hold my position and conclusions, but I'm putting those in abeyance. I'm setting them aside while I'm caring about you and how you see the world. That's empathy. I want to share with you a good website if you want a resource. There's a great one by Peter Garrioch. I'm not sure how to say his name. He's a social worker from Portland, Oregon, and it's called Break the Cycle. And I think he's got some really good tips and helps regarding empathizing. And you might go to his website and it could be of help to you. I hope you've enjoyed the video today. I hope you'll join our website, YouTube website, and give me a call if I can be of help. I do in-office and online therapy. Watch my other free videos, and I want to thank you for listening. Have a great day.
Hi everyone, my name is Jerry Wise. I'm a life and relationship coach, and I have been helping people with self-differentiation and recovery for some 45 years or so. And this video is entitled Systems Anxiety and Narcissists. This video is to help those who are in a relationship with a narcissist or for those who are recovering from being in a relationship with a narcissist. I've been sharing several videos on my channel about systems anxiety, which I think is such an important topic, and I would recommend you watch the video Calmness is Everything, which is a longer video of mine that was commissioned by someone for me to make. And it's a very good video talking about systems anxiety and how important calmness is. This is another video, and I want to talk again about how important being calm, what the recovery benefits are for working towards that, particularly if you're dealing with narcissists. Often, many times, people want a quick fix, and a simple three steps to being free from the trouble of being in a relationship with a narcissist, or 3 steps to feel better, and things will just go great. And I've wanted that as well. I remember years ago, that's something I was looking for too. And I would read hundreds, if not thousands, of self-help books. I remember donating about 1,000 books to a seminary that I attended and a graduate school, because I had read the books. And again, most of them were linear, individualistic, cause and effect type of self-help books. And very few of them, if any, had any notions about functioning, systems anxiety, having a systems approach, having a family systems approach, which I found greatly helpful in my own recovery. And so I understand how I just, tell me what I should do so that it will be better. That's kind of a quick fix question. When someone says, just tell me what to do. Well, because it's not just about telling you what to do. It's how you are functioning in this puzzle, how you're functioning in the system with a, with a narcissist, how you're functioning in the system with the family of origin within you, how you function in your relationships. So it's not a simple answer of just do this or just do that. There are some things that are helpful. If somebody says, how do I avoid jumping out of this plane without a parachute? Don't jump out of the plane. That's a very quick fix, cause and effect, simple solution to that. But when you talk about relationships, and when you talk about our inner functioning, it's often not just don't jump out of the plane. There's much more going on than that. And the more pieces we take in, the more we understand about the system, the more we will be able to function with better direction. We'll be able to formulate the problems better, and then also formulate the solutions better, rather than just recycling our same old patterns over and over again. And I see the way out as a more long-term, courageous, patient, and less anxious way of recovery, of understanding the system and our functioning, strategizing changes, and strategizing the change, and implementing and practicing what we know strategically and tactically, based on our understanding of the system. Well, we have to learn about the system first so that we know how to function in it. Because if you use a cause and effect, for example, a cause and effect solution to a problem, it may tell you to turn left. However, if you use a systems understanding, it may then advise you or show you to turn right, then turn left. But if you just turn left, you're probably going to fall back into the old pattern again eventually. And so it may say turn right, then turn left. And so I think taking in more information is what's important, and affects how we, how we understand relationships. Just like if someone walks by you, and they're using a cane to get by you and step on your foot and don't even look back and keep on walking, you then feel angry or upset or irritated that someone just stepped on your foot and just kept on walking. based on what you know, that's how you respond. And in fact, you may want to go punch the guy. You know, we don't, but I'm saying, you know, we feel irritated. Then we discover when the guy goes up and does whatever he's doing, then comes back, he's blind. He doesn't even know what he's stepping on. He doesn't even see where he's going. Adding that to the mix, because now I have a bigger understanding of what just happened, my feelings change. My thoughts change. A lot of things change in terms of how I understand this problem and what solution I wouldn't go and confront him. I wouldn't go punch him. You know, you see how we would change with more information? And so we change with more information in the system. And that's what I've determined to try to help people to change, by giving them more information about the system. Firstly, if we have a narcissistic parent or family member or family or friends, or we're in a relationship with a narcissist relationship is a high anxiety endeavor. It is a very high anxiety endeavor. Often, high anxiety is the norm in these relationships. Both acute anxiety and chronic anxiety, or unconscious intergenerational anxiety. And often both of these are at DEFCON 5 or DEFCON 4, whatever the numbers are for DEFCON, in terms of when we start a nuclear strike. And often they're so very high. And let me describe, acute anxiety is a threat that is something that triggers my fight or flight process or response in a conscious way. Chronic anxiety is the emotional field that includes intergenerational chronic anxiety, which is often unconscious, but it is also a fight or flight process. And we tap into the supply of chronic anxiety that we held in the family superself. The family superself holds this chronic anxiety. And it's the intergenerational inherited anxiety and functioning. And if you've got both chronic and acute anxiety being triggered at very high levels, and in a narcissistic relationship, they often are, high levels frequently, often, except when there's maybe love bombing going on or some other type of soothing, or maybe you have the toxic positive narcissistic behavior where they just want everything to be positive and good and great. But again, they are the thermometer for how the relationship should be. Narcissistic relationships require us to be in acute anxiety, and that our chronic family of origin anxiety is constantly triggered. Why is that? Because being in a relationship with a narcissist, parent, friend, spouse, boyfriend, girlfriend, they are unpredictable relationships. They're overreactive. They're hypersensitive relationships. Often the narcissist will take everything personally. They don't like to share influence with other people. The non-empathy is crazy making when they do not demonstrate empathy. There's often lots of blaming, and they don't take responsibility for their own behaviors and own choices. And if you have and there are many other traits also, but at least if you have all of these all require us to be in a state of anxiety and triggers our limbic system to be reactive, just almost daily, hourly, And so in a relationship, with a narcissist, high anxiety is easily triggered. And the last thing a narcissist wants is for you to stay calm and for you to be thinking. That's the last thing a narcissist wants. And it messes up the whole narcissistic relationship. They thrive as a part of their narcissistic supply on you being highly anxious. The anxiousness and the reactivity of others is a part of their supply. And it's also a way they control as well. Because if you're always doing that list of things I was telling you about, manipulation, lying, if you're always doing those things, it keeps everybody's anxiety way up on high on a 10 scale. And while they're just floating along with non-empathy and not caring. And so they can think things through pretty easily. We're discombobulated because of the anxiety. Narcissists want to shed their shame and their anxiety onto others. Higher anxiety triggers acute and chronic anxiety. If you don't believe me, try staying calm and thoughtful in the presence of a narcissist. I've talked to many narcissists. It is quite a challenge to stay calm, non-reactive, and thoughtful when interacting with a narcissist, even on a professional basis, because they keep throwing, as we call, poop in the game, though we use other words. They keep throwing poop in the game with their lack of empathy, their lack of insight, their entitlement, their grandiosity, all those things. And it takes normal people, or normal neurotic people, that's what I mean, normal us, we're just normal neurotic, and it keeps our anxiety way up high because of their behaviors and how their personality operates. While chronic and acute anxiety are a part of any relationship, for the narcissistic relationship, these need to be highly charged and are highly charged often. Why is it that the narcissist would not want you to be calm and thoughtful? Because calm and thoughtful is harder to control. Anxious and reactive is much easier for the narcissist to control. We become over-focused on our anxiety and our intensity, and over-focused on managing the narcissist, that there's little left for the self. So we're always in a tense or anxious state. We're always worried about what can we do to change them, and we get lost in the whole process. And so our functioning gets lost. Let's take, for example, you're in a narcissistic marriage. You have a narcissistic partner, spouse. Someone hits your car. It's not your fault. You have acute anxiety. You might feel nervous, angry, fearful. You might be fearful about how the narcissist is going to respond, your spouse's response. There's paperwork you're going to have to do, repairs you're going to have to do. You have the adrenaline response because you've been hit in a car. And you may have PTSD or anxiety disorders that are much more conscious and aware. Then we have the more unconscious anxiety, which is the deeper anxiety from way back here in the limbic system. It gets fired or triggered, and we feel like a child with the narcissist spouse. We may feel worthless. We may feel shame. These are systems feelings, as in terms of how we have been functioning. We may feel helpless, or I must play the one down role, or I'm always in trouble role, or I'm a mess up, which isn't one of those old roles. And those feelings are triggered by this unconscious anxiety that flows throughout our family of origin system and through us as well.
And so a part of the healing and recovery has to do with reducing that by detachment, neutrality, more calmness from our family of origin. Understand when it happens, how it happens, and also focusing on ourselves and not just flying on automatic, but we fly on manual. We use a manual approach, because if you fly on automatic, you're just going to do what you've always done, felt what you always felt, had negative thoughts that you've always had. You know, it's just going to be the same old if we go on automatic. Secondly, and I would recommend you watch till the end of the video for some help with some calmness, though I really like, calmness is everything. I have some other videos on calmness or systems feelings. I would take a look at that. There's a good video on systems feelings versus true feelings. I think it's called True Feelings versus Systems Feelings is the name of the video. When we go no contact, let's say, with a narcissist or a narcissistic family or a narcissistic parent, it will be important that we reduce acute and chronic anxiety. That will help reduce us going back if we've decided to go no contact. It helps us to live more freely from our chronic and acute anxiety that got us into the narcissistic relationship in the first place. And I realize narcissists are manipulative and lie, and there's all kinds of things they're doing to get us into the relationship. And then we have our chronic anxiety and our functioning that also supports us into the relationship. Also, if we can reduce that chronic and acute anxiety, we can then develop a real self versus a reactive self that comes from that reactive super self that we were born into in our family of origin. And what happens is we can end up, kind of pretending or having a pseudo recovery or pretending to be mature. And when I think about no contact, there's mature no contact and then there's immature no contact. Mature no contact is, or let me talk about the immature no contact. The immature no contact is when we have cut off from the narcissist, maybe a good thing, because they may not be a good person to be in a relationship with, not a good dynamic for you. They may be abusive, etc. And so we cut off from them, but we're still experiencing lots of acute and chronic anxiety. A healthier, more mature cutoff, no contact, is when we are working through our acute anxiety and understanding our chronic anxiety from our family of origin and keeping it down and lower and working on our identifying how we function in emotional systems. And if we do that, then we have a much more durable no contact than what I would consider a non-durable no contact. Because if we have all this anxiety chronically and acutely, again, we're more likely to get caught back up in the system again. And we want a durable detachment. This occurs when we reduce our acute anxiety, and here's one of the immaturities about going no contact for some people. Oh, well, just go no contact. Well, okay. That may be a help because it may reduce acute anxiety, but it may not reduce chronic anxiety, which really fuels our functioning in our life. And to reduce that chronic anxiety, we want to learn how we function or functioned in our family of origin, seeing the hot potato of anxiety going around our family when we were growing up and even in present. We want to see how we operate. And many people don't see how they operate. They just operate. They don't see how they operate. And seeing is so important.
systems feelings are learned and imprinted. Again, we have this triggering of anxiety, then we feel shame, guilt, worthless, etc. And we have systems feelings from this chronic anxiety. Learning our immaturities. What are our immaturities? Learning self-acceptance and experiencing, not just learning, experiencing self-acceptance. And again, self-acceptance reduces acute and chronic anxiety, just like calmness reduces acute and chronic anxiety. It also reduces family of origin triggered feelings and thoughts, and in fact reduces intergenerational trauma in our cells, DNA, body memory, embryonic memory. There's a whole science around that in terms of how all of this stuff is transmitted to us biologically, psychologically, within our family. Thirdly, to keep systems anxiety out of the emotional field, we want to stay as close to calm as possible. To keep systems anxiety out of the emotional field, we want to reduce the power of the misery storm produced by the narcissist by working on detachment and reducing, absorbing the emotions and beliefs of the narcissist. And again, as our anxiety goes up, chronic and acute, we then tend to absorb the feelings, the beliefs of others, and particularly, say, in this case, a narcissist. Working on these skills allow us to think with more clarity, recognize we are separate from the narcissist, using the old tennis net approach, which I do, is I want to see this relationship like it is a tennis game. They're on one side of the net, I'm on the other side of the net. Neither of us jump over the other side of the net. If they are upset, that doesn't mean I have to be upset. If they believe one thing, it doesn't mean I have to believe that thing. They are them, I am me. We are different, and that's differentiation. We want to increase our self-empathy as well, which also helps us to reduce our anxiety. Increasing self-empathy, caring for self, thinking about self, seeing self as someone you want to nurture, take care of, and love. And then we will experience a more solid sense of self. Systems anxiety produces systems feelings, trigger us to do the most unhelpful dysfunctional patterns or behaviors. And it extends our family of origin or childhood patterns into our adult present. Triangles, pursuing and distancing, or avoidance and enmeshing, overfunctioning, underfunctioning for the self, peace-mongering. You know, we hear warmongering. Somebody's just always trying to start war. Well, we're always trying to start peace. Well, we may need to focus on ourselves rather than just making everything okay for everyone and the system. Hustling for love and acceptance. Many ACONs, adult children of narcissists or spouses of narcissists or siblings, ask me, and they will ask me this question. And this may help you to understand. They'll unspokenly ask me this way. Jerry, while I'm at a 10 on a 10 scale of anxiety, and I feel reactive and overwhelmed with negative thoughts, what should I do? And what should I say? And how should I function in this way? And many times they ask out of that, I'm totally overwhelmed. I'm so anxious, I can't even see straight. Now, Jerry, tell me what to do. And the first thing I would say is, don't do anything. If you're at that level of anxiety, don't do anything, because whatever you do is probably going to ultimately make it worse. Ultimately, there may be a momentary calm, but ultimately it's probably not going to make it better, and you'll probably just be functioning in the same status quo. And my thought is, no matter what you say or do in this situation or in this high anxiety state, it will probably maintain the status quo. In very early recovery, ACONs will ask, well, in a high anxiety and flooded with systems feelings, how do I behave to change my parent or our relationship, say a spouse, for the better? And I'm going, no, you're already jumping to how to change the relationship. Let's work on reducing your anxiety first so you can function better and think better. And so many times it's kind of amazing if you can help someone stop, reflect, become aware, and see more dynamics going on and see more of the system that's happening. You often don't have to tell them what to do. They will then go, oh, this is what I need to do. The answer is already there. It's so overwhelmed with all of this anxiety. So if I can help them reduce the calmness about this and reduce their anxiety about this, they can come to a better decision. So what would I advise you do? I would advise you to read some books on self-differentiation. Go to my website and click contact on there and write me for the list of self-differentiation books. And many of them will talk about this anxiety that we deal with, because I think anxiety is such a key for society, for relationships, and it's a way out. It's a better way of formulating the problems and better way out of the problems. I also, in working with clients, and we have me and my staff who work at Jerry Wise Relationship Systems. You can contact us to work with us directly. I think of the 4 Ps: perceive, which is becoming self-aware, see how you function in this anxious situation, predict, how can we predict the responses of other people, and then practice our new responses given our new awareness, and then we are persistent and make the new behavior more of a habit. And it also brings the anxiety down in the system over time. Even like a statement simply as much as, I understand, but that's not how I see it. Or I understand what you're saying, but that's not how I see it. Even a simple differentiation statement like that can make a big difference. I want to remind you there's a workshop coming up this Saturday on July 17th of 21, 1 to 5. I hope you'll sign up using the link below. You can go to my website and look on events. I think the workshop's also on the front page of the website. I hope today was helpful to you. And I know sometimes it's difficult to teach these things, and maybe I'm a faulty vessel to communicate these things, but I hope there were a few things that I shared today that could be of help to you. I want to thank you for watching. Have a great day, and be wise.